Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. My name is Garen, and this morning we are having a discussion in Facebook Live event on why raising consciousness is all that matters. Good morning again. So nice to see everyone this morning. I'll give a minute or two for some people to come online, as I know they're going to be there. So we're coming back today, and we're readdressing why raising consciousness, why raising our consciousness is all that really matters. And this was triggered just by my usual read through the headlines. And yes, Kelly is here. She's over there looking at her computer and trying not to. She's kind of giggling over there. So anyways, a couple times a day I just peruse the news headlines. I don't involve myself in the news, and the reason I don't is because we end up focusing on the things that we don't wish to see anymore, and that helps keep them here. Good morning, Susan. Nice to see you this morning. Excellent. Glad to have Susan with us today. Kelly is here as well, Susan. Maybe she'll make a comment and say hi. So we're going to dive right into this. And as I was saying, as I was watching the news, it really, and then of course, on top of that, perusing some of the Facebook posts, and there's been very little time for that lately, to be honest, but I'm trying to fit things in where I can. And one of the questions that came up is, well, when do we speak out and when do we not speak out against our politicians, for example? And my reply was this, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but my reply essentially was, don't focus on that. Never speak out against anything that we no longer wish to see. It doesn't work. A case in point, here in Canada, we have the David Suzuki Foundation, and David Suzuki is a world-renowned scientist, author, environmentalist, a deeply spiritual man. I had the great pleasure of meeting his daughter up in Haida Gwaii when I traveled up there on foot to help raise awareness of what was going on in Haida Gwaii. Haida Gwaii is out in what used to be the Queen Charlotte's, and that area, of course, is one of the first places that climate damage becomes very evident because of the weather patterns and because of the circulation patterns. Jasmeet is here too. Hello, Jasmeet. Nice to see you. Great. I think this is the first time we've seen you on one of our live sessions, and we're so happy to have you here. So, I want to start with things a little bit on a light note. So I've pulled a cartoon this morning, and I think this cartoon is hilarious. Okay, so here you have a couple, and obviously the woman's meeting the rest of the household for the first time. This is my cat, this is my dog, and my ego. Funny, I saw that cartoon and I immediately thought of this little guy, that action side of ourselves, that active, what we would call the masculine influence, okay? And keep in mind we're talking about words. We're not really talking masculine or feminine or good or evil. The proper term for that would be more the action side of us, that which always wants and always wants to do. So I thought we'd start with that little cartoon, and now we're going to dive right in. So, raising consciousness. Well, first we better be clear about what consciousness is. And consciousness is simply that. It's not really a definable word, okay? Because consciousness in itself can be equated to the womb of creation. It is that pregnant space where anything can happen, where anything can manifest. It contains the sum total of all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever will be in an unmanifest form. Good morning, Jackie. Nice to see you here this morning as well. So this unmanifest form, this creative womb, this sea of consciousness is what we are, what we live in, what we are part of. Consciousness is that ground state of being. Now, what happens to consciousness? Well, awakening is what happens, okay? And this awakening is an evolution, and that is when that consciousness begins to develop self-awareness. And Carol's here. Perfect timing. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you too. You know, we are so pleased to have people coming out for these events, and we love the opportunity to teach and learn with you. Because as I've said many a times, I don't want any of you trading one pulpit for another, one preacher for another, one spiritual leader for another, one person for another. Ignore the messenger and pay attention to the message. Decide for yourself what works for you. See what resonates within your being. And Jeanette, awesome. Nice crowd this morning. Great to see. So consciousness, that sea of consciousness, that pregnant womb of creation, we are part of that. And as these individuated shards of that consciousness, we are growing in an evolution of awareness, becoming more and more aware of ourselves and aware of the limitlessness of our being. Listen to that closely. Limitlessness. No limits. No ties. No binds. No borders. No end. And no beginning. We can think of that awakening, okay, as this actionable side again. There we go. This actionable side of ourselves. And in this awakening, as young children first in the world, we have our connection is still deeply embedded in that sea of consciousness, especially as little babies. We are more highly attuned to the sea of consciousness. We may be in this world, but we are not yet of it. And Jeanette. Hello, Jeanette. Sorry, I have to look off screen on this one as opposed to having this on board the video feed. So if I repeat myself or miss a question, I do apologize. So as I was saying, you know, as a baby, we're more connected to that sea of consciousness still. We may be in the relative world, but we're really not of it yet. And what happens is we almost take a minor devolution, and it's not. It's the dream. It's the final falling asleep. And that occurs with the birth of what we would term the sense of I, or the ego. And ego is you. Never get into the idea of saying my ego. Because what you're doing, and we've talked before about how the ego likes to behave and split itself in order to protect itself. You know, this is why we all carry around inside of ourselves a whole bunch of personalities. We don't really have one or two or three. There's not really one being. There's all these personalities that get stuck at various stages of our lives if we're not careful. Various stages of our consciousness, there's unsolved elements within there yet, and parts of us get stuck there. And by the time we are deeply asleep, which culminates around the age of 15 or so, we are now totally identified with that sense of I. We think we are an individuated being. We see other beings as separate from ourselves. We no longer remember that we are all part of that sea of consciousness becoming aware of itself. And that evolution is not happening in one point. That evolution is happening simultaneously through all space and time. What a gift. What a magnificent life we live. It blows me away, actually. It really does. Self-awareness, awareness of self. Notice that the self is capitalized. You know, if you were to look at our journey, it's actually a wave We start here in the sea of consciousness, and we appear to devolve into this, lower being, which isn't really the right way to put it, okay? And that would be our human form. And then we come back up at the end in what we call death and back into that sea of consciousness. The wild ride is over. We're done our day at the fair. No matter what we thought about it, it's all really been fun. No one's hurt, no one's harmed. Everything's all right. In self-awareness, we become aware of our intrinsic ability as parts of that sea of consciousness to create our existence. And here's the kicker. We have been creating our existence individually, brackets, and collectively ever since we emerged into this physical plane. You see, that's why we're here. We are God getting to know itself. God exploring itself. But it's all God. All of it. It's all that wondrous sea of creation. When we work consciously from that egoic state, that sense of I, to raise our consciousness, to approach that state, we are working in harmonious alignment with the entirety of our being. And when I say that, I mean that on all levels, on this level, and on this level, and on the hugeness, the magnificence of what we truly are as one being. I'm going to pull up number 2 here, another storyboard. And forgive me, but I really, really like the rainbow effect in the yin and yang. So you're going to notice, you're going to see that a bunch. So how do we go about raising our consciousness? And, there's lots of ways to do that. And the first way is to understand, as the Buddhists have said, that this indeed is a journey of mind. Because when you really think about it, there is nothing that happens externally to you. It only appears to be that way. And I'm going to give you what I hope will become a clear, and I'm going to just shift out of the light a bit there. Sorry. We're going to... Thank you, honey. Oh, we're going to get to see Kelly for a second. Hold on, everyone. She does exist. Okay, hon, you got to come over here, at least smile for the camera once. People want to see you, too. Hi. There you go. So when we are in alignment with our... When we are consciously deciding to raise our consciousness, when we are consciously working towards that, and keeping in mind this is a journey of mind. So we have a beautiful tree, and that tree is standing there, and already we've lost the tree. Now people are going, well, wait a minute. You just said there's a tree there. Thank you, Jackie. Sorry, we missed on the curtain there. I can't create my own halo yet, so I'm always looking for the sunlight to do it for me. Apparently, there's still a little too much of this guy hanging around yet. So as I said already, we lost the tree. What happened? Well, our mind placed a label on the tree, and with that label came all our conceptions about a tree. And this is what we do. Our experience of the external world, what we would call the external world, is not external. It's actually internal. Everything is being interpreted, perceived, judged, thought about, created through the mind. Carol thought it was quite angelic. Yeah. Until you get to know me. That's actually the glow of the fiery pits of hell trying to catch up and drag me back. Apparently there's a restraining order against me in heaven and in hell now. So it looks like I'm going to be here for a very long time. So look forward to lots of good videos. Apparently I'm going to be doing them for the next couple millennia at a minimum. So as I said, as soon as we've placed that label on it, we have ceased to see what is before us. And instead, we see what we have created in our head, what we are speaking to ourselves in our head about it. And this is the best example I can give on how we truly, how everything truly is internal. There is nothing you can experience without the consciousness that you are interpreting it. Jackie recognizes the little devil, hey? I think we all do, in one way or another. As I said, there's absolutely nothing we experience that we experience without internalizing it. The brush of wind against the hairs on your arm, they produce a sensation. And what is that sensation? That sensation is the product of an electrical signal, the same electrical signal that you would feel if you cut yourself, that goes to the brain, and it causes a response, and that response guides your reality. Raising consciousness is our purpose, and within that purpose, life is fulfilled. And I keep bringing people back to this time and time and time again. Seek ye first the kingdom, and everything else is added to you. When we live from that higher state of being, when we consciously work on living from that place of raising consciousness as our primary purpose, raising consciousness in ourselves and raising consciousness in others. And how do we do that? We help to free ourselves and help to free others from the lies and the chains of our relative world and our society and our way of thinking. And Sue is here as well. Hello, Sue. Nice to see you too. Our purpose is to grow in conscious awareness. Our purpose is to remind ourselves, to remember ourselves. Split those words up, remind, to bring it back to the one mind of God, to remember, to pull all the parts of ourselves as individuated parts of creation and as a collective of creation together and remember ourselves. We are a member of one glorious expression of God in the universe, and we would call that the human species, one of tens of thousands of species and sentient, more billions upon billions upon billions of species. Every single one of them living the dream of the relative universe, expressions of the divine, looking back upon itself with a one-of-a-kind view. That's the gift of who you are. That's your purpose. Express your view of the universe to the world. We're all waiting for your gift. That's part of your purpose. You see, when we talk about the web of life, and I've been slowly working on exposing Kelly to actually seeing the web a little bit. And I got to tell you, it's not a web. It is like the most intricate crystalline lattice that you could ever imagine, and it is not solid. It is flexible. New patterns are always forming within patterns, and it is continually growing in complexity, and in the feeling of it is nothing but pure joy and love. And Janet Lynn is here too. Nice to see you, Janet. Hi back. How do we help this purpose? How do we help raising our consciousness? We try to spend more time being than doing. And keep in mind, you can be highly active and still exist in a state of being. In the state of being, and I have to get my 62 cents out of these characters, so I'm going to be bringing them in on occasion. The sense of being is more equated to that sea of consciousness. We are sitting in the totality of all the possibilities, of all the present moments, of all the future moments, of all the past moments. We are sitting there in the center of it all, and we are still. That candle within, that still place. Our bodies may be intensely active, there may be intense activity going around us, but within is that still sense of being, that sense of aliveness. Doing is not only easy, it's also usually unconscious. So we spend way more time being human doings, as we've talked about in the video, between human beings and human doings. And this human doing is many times an attempt to not have to stop and hear or deal with what's going on in the head. So we run away from ourselves. We dig ourselves into work. Maybe we become workaholics, or we find some other focus, anything to keep us from looking at ourselves, from paying attention to those little feelings deep inside of us. And here's the kicker. As the Bhagavad Gita lets us know, Krishna is speaking truth. Om Tat Sat, literally God, the sea of consciousness, is the doer. And we've talked about this before with the dishes. Your mind, your ego, that which you think you are, okay, is usually far away from where the dishes are when you're doing the dishes. And you have a moment to become intensely present when doing dishes. You have the ability to be fully there as a being as you are engaged in the doing. And it is not you who's doing it. I know that seems hard to swallow, but you got to keep coming back to this. Look at it. Do the dishes. Pay attention. It is not your conscious mind that is telling you how to do the dishes. You are not directing your body. If you had to direct your body, we'd all be dead. At the very best, we would last until we fell asleep for the first time. And then all functions would cease. There is a magnificent intelligence operating through you that surrounds you and engulfs you and encompasses you and is you. That is what's doing the work. That is what's putting out the effort. We, in actuality, are along for the experience. We, in actuality, are along for the growth, for the evolution. And Cindy again sneaks in the back door. Cindy has a good habit of doing that. Let me guess, you always show up 10 minutes late for a movie and try to open the door without letting any light in so that no one knows. Cindy, we love having you here. We absolutely love having you here. And I am still laughing about my wandering Jew plant named Jesus. So God, that sea of consciousness, Om Tat Sat, that is the doer. You know, we are encouraged to make everything an offering. And to be honest, it all belongs to the Sea of Consciousness anyways. So those offerings are really recognitions of truth. When we make an offering to our Creator, we are not taking something we own and saying, "Here you go, God, take this from me as a gift." That's not what that means. You can't come to God in supplication and try and say, "Okay, well, I'll give you this shiny bauble, and you give me what I want." It all belongs to God. You too. You're part and parcel of that creative Sea of Consciousness. All of it. When we give an offering, what we're doing is we are showing conscious recognition of the source of all things, including ourselves. We are reminding ourselves again in a very spiritual, mental, and physical way when we make offering. And that offering doesn't have to be to a deity on a shelf. That offering can be to another aspect of God, your neighbor, your friend, the homeless person on the corner. That's what we do when we give offerings. We are reminding ourselves that all belongs, including us, to and in and as part of that glorious Sea of Consciousness. God, the Sea of Consciousness, indeed does all. Okay, we're going to pull up our third little storyboard here, and we're going to talk a little bit. I'm never ever late. Oh, yeah, I'm not a person to be late very much ever. You know, it's just, you know, I got to tell you a quick story. A number of years ago, I had this very short-term girlfriend, and the reason it was short-term is whenever I would invite her out somewhere, you know, I was a soldier, so I was back and forth in and out of the country, and whenever I would invite her out somewhere, it was always a 2 to 3 hour interval between the time I would invite her and the time she would be available in order for her to get ready. So late was what we arrived at for everything. And I just couldn't take it. I like to be early. I like to relax. You know, if I get to movie theater, I want to sit. I want to eat half my popcorn and have chit-chat first. And then we can get into the movie sort of deal. Intentions or desires, you know, and really we have to be careful about these two words in as much as they are subject to misdefining. So we have intention when we are engaged in an action. Are we breaking up? I don't know. I think we're all breaking up in one way or another. I know ever since 50, almost a decade ago now, I've been slowly breaking down. So we have intention to and intentions usually result in actions, okay? And we have an intent to meditate, let's say. So we sit and we try to become quiet, we pay attention to our breathing, and we engage ourselves in that space of meditation. Having the intent to do something and then carrying through with it is not the issue. The issue gets in the way when our desire for the end result is too prevalent in our minds, because we don't own the end results. We never own the end results of our actions. Now, we're not talking about responsibility, but we're talking about the final outcome is never in our hands. You know, no matter how hard we may work to build an earthquake-proof home, a tidal wave wipes it out instead. Or a windstorm knocks it down. Or the weight of the snow on the roof. compacts the house. The outcomes of everything in life are not subject to us. Many times we think so. Well, okay, so if I want to wash the dishes, I'm going to go over there and wash the dishes and they'll be washed. And yeah, that's usually the case. Until the time that you slice your finger open on the knife that you forgot was in the bottom of the dishpan that someone left there. And the dishes aren't going to get done right now because you have to deal with your finger. And this is where the issue comes in, for ego especially, okay? Ego has not only decided what it wants to do, you have already decided what you want to do, but most times you've already decided what the results should be. And we set ourselves up for disappointment. Focusing in the present moment, I personally give up all intentions and desires. The only intention I hold is to remain open to whatever life is bringing me. And in that way, there is only ever an action to take out of natural consequence. Kelly will tell you that I am not a guy to sit there and have to mull over what to do. I don't think about things. Why? Because it's going to get me in trouble. So the only intention I hold is my intent to raise consciousness and the faith that the universe is already bringing everything I need to fulfill that purpose, to make that happen. My openness, my state of being determines that. Meditation, contemplation, these are two of the largest weapons we have in our intent to raise our consciousness. When we sit in meditation, it is not an escape, it is a returning our attention to home. I recommend when you meditate that you sit fairly upright, and there's a reason for that is not only like you are at your own altar when you meditate. I guess that's really the best way to put that. We meditate at our own altar. We are at the altar of our own being. How do you approach? Just be opening and trusting that all is as it should be no matter what. Yeah, that's exactly it, sweetie. Faith. Faith that things are exactly as they need to be until we choose different. Because every single thing in this physical world, believe it or not, is geared to help us all wake up. There is not a single event, not a single happening, not a single synchronistic circumstance that is not designed to offer the opportunity to raise consciousness, to fulfill purpose of being. Yes, faith, trust. Contemplation is a form of meditation. In contemplation, we think deeply on a single subject. And a great place to start is actually trying to find where I reside within this being. And I'm going to give you a spoiler, but I do want you to take a look. You're not going to be able to find yourself. It's quite freeing to know you're not really there. It is indeed all in the mind. The corporal essence of what we would call the body is just a coarser vibration of the same vibrational state of that sea of consciousness. If we could look with quantum eyes, we were talking about quantum physics and CERN the other day, and if we could look with quantum eyes, we would see this dancing mass of particles flittering in and out of existence with very few possibilities of catching where any of the boundaries actually start and end. This is the magnificent state of our being. This is our ability to create. Everything is available to us. as individuals, as a whole, as communities, as families, as a species. What do we choose? That's really what we're here for. What do you choose as your expression of the divine in you? It all starts, it all ends. Veronica's here. Hello, Veronica. Nice to see you as well. Glad you made it in just for the end. And, of course, there'll be a rewatch available. It all starts and ends in love. We are literally swimming in a sea of love. And we must be very careful, because the definition of love has been warped and twisted, quite frankly, and you know, it happens on every level. You know, the husband who comes home drunk and beats the wife but proclaims to love her. The God of Christianity that proclaims to love all his children yet will condemn you to hell for a fault forever. The love of a parent that seems to disappear when the child is not behaving. Are any of these love? No. They're not. To be quite frank, we as human beings will never conceptualize love in our state of being. In moments of satori, you come close to the feeling, but you could not conceptualize that feeling into words. You know, I've died a couple times now, and if you read any NDE experience and watch mine, the same thing applies. That sea of love, that glowing light of love you're in, is beyond words. And if we were to even come close, we would need a poet. And I am not that much of a poet. But I'll say this about love. Love, from what I see of our divine creator, okay, from what I observe, love never binds or holds anyone from anything. Love is an open acceptance of what is. Love is surrendering to the moment and then making a conscious choice. We separate the deed from the doer, because indeed the doer didn't really do the deed. You know, we blame people in their unconscious states, forgetting that we came from that same unconscious state. If not in this life, and in life prior. Raising consciousness is truly what we're here for. Raising consciousness in ourselves, raising consciousness in others. And that false sense of self, that egoic sense of self, would have you seeking fulfillment outside of yourself all the time. And fulfillment will appear to come from outside of yourself. This is the dichotomy again of this relative universe. But the only time true fulfillment comes is when you are fulfilled from within, and then every action you take becomes an action of fulfillment. It starts in that place. You cannot be unfulfilled inside and go outside of yourself to find fulfillment and enact fulfillment. It must come from within. It must come from the realization that you are a powerful spiritual being here enjoying a beautiful human ride. You are on the universe's greatest roller coaster, and it lasts a lifetime. Choose your experience. Choose who you wish to be. The sea of consciousness will hold nothing against you and watches with expectation and love and joy at what it is that you and those around you and all of us are going to create next. What do we choose to create? We're going to wrap this one up here. That's been about 40 minutes, and I know I've said before I don't like to talk that much, and apparently that's a lie I keep telling myself. Look forward to another new release tomorrow, and more videos during the week, and more live presentations. Again, my deepest love and Kelly's love to all of you, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our aunts, our uncles, our fellow children and grandchildren. We love you. We really do. Namaste. God bless. May the sea of consciousness hold you and forever guide your path.